Well, 12 feet, and then it gets pulled into the center.
Okay, it is 6:30. I am going to call the meeting to order. This meeting was properly noticed. Do I have a motion or discussion on the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have a second? Thank you, Brooke. All those in favor, aye.
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 Anyone opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We have no visitors this evening. Next is our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Laura. Do we have a second? Thank you, Brooke. Because this has the financials in it, we need to take roll.
Curtis?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye. Tone?
Aye.
Modic?
Aye.
Hammer?
Aye.
Beckman?
Aye.
Andler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, under new business, we are going to hear from David from Rupert Milky, who's going to be presenting the task order for the Meister Park and Waterloo Street Lift Station upgrades.
Good evening. I'm here to present the task order for the Waterloo and Meister Park lift station upgrades. So where this project stands presently is we have sent contracts out to the contractor for execution. The commission awarded the project, I believe, a month ago. And this task order is for Rupert Milky to provide to the city engineering services, and these services are listed under the scope of services. In short, it's the contract administration and inspections that are necessary for a project. The DNR, as part of their approval for projects, states that there has to be a resident engineer watching the work, making sure the work is in accordance with the approved plans and specifications. And that's what our scope covers. It covers actual inspection. We have spot checks, part-time inspection for a lot of the work that will not be buried. For the full-time, we will provide full-time inspection for any work that is buried, for example, the sanitary sewer at the Meister Park lift station. We need to make sure the contractor is doing things correctly, because once it's buried, it's too late if something's not right and there's 8 or 10 feet of fill over that pipe. Other parts of the administration include reviewing shop drawings, making sure that the equipment shop drawings are correct in accordance with the plans and specifications, administering a pre-construction meeting, preparing the pre-construction meeting notes and the agenda, attending progress meetings with the contractor and the city to make sure everyone's on the same page as the project progresses, processing and reviewing contractor pay requests. We want to make sure what the contractor is requesting for payment is commensurate with the level of work that is done. We don't want to overpay, yet we want to be fair to the contractor as well. We will review, negotiate, and process change orders if applicable. We always aim for no change orders, but sometimes there are little things that pop up. We will participate in equipment startups, making sure that the new equipment, such as the generator, the transfer switch, and electrical equipment at each location, is functioning properly. We will prepare a punch list of little things the contractors missed. We will review the equipment operation and maintenance manuals and the record drawings. And we also have rolled into this providing telemetry and SCADA coordination. So times for rendering services, we're hoping that the commission will authorize this task order tonight. We anticipate the contracts to be in place yet this month. I checked with Forest Construction a few days ago. They're getting their bonds. They anticipate sending everything back to us in a few days. Once we get those, we'll look at those and send those to the city. Most of the remainder of this year will be equipment fabrication. And I talked to Forest Construction. They would like to start work at the site, physical work at the site, next winter. Going into spring, they'll probably put some frost blankets over the spots where the excavation will take place, and they'll be ready to break ground in March of 2024, and we have construction complete in July of 2024. So it sounds like a long ways off, but even after the approved shop drawings, there are long lead times for equipment. The longest is the generator, which is about a 1-year lead time after approved shop drawings. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this task order.
If there are no questions, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the task order for the lift station upgrades.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Joe. And we need roll call on this as well.
Joel,
Aye.
Moda,
Aye.
Rule,
Aye.
Curtis,
Aye.
Andler,
Aye.
Beckman,
Aye.
Hammer?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Katie Anding regarding the aeration tank diffuser project.
Good evening, everybody. So on Thursday of last week, we began preparations for our aeration tank diffuser project, which meant we needed to pump down our first aeration tank. We're putting new diffusers in 3 of our 5 aeration tanks. So we pumped it down on Thursday to find there being about 4 to 6 inches of sediment on the bottom of the tank, a little bit more than what our personnel or equipment can remove. So we proceeded to, I called a company, actually prior to all of this, I called a company that we heard previously has taken sludge out of these tanks for us. They don't do it anymore. So I called another company, and they said they would remove this sediment from the tank. So they gave me a price for that of being $7,300 per day to remove the sediment. We proceeded to take another tank down just because we thought this is going to take some time to get the sediment out of this tank. We found the same amount of sediment in the next tank. So we're pretty sure that the middle tank is going to have that also. So this all, they think they can do it in 1 to 1.5 days, times 3 tanks, which would come to between $21,900 to $32,800 just to remove the sediment. Then that comes into the disposal of the sediment. So they would charge us $68 per ton, which, if our calculation is correct, it's really a ballpark guesstimate on how much this is going to weigh. We don't really know. I mean, it could be real light, a lot lighter than what my estimate is. I try to estimate a little bit higher. I went online to see how much wet sand would per cubic foot and try to figure out how much this could weigh. And we came up with approximately 210 tons. And so from there, I got a number $14,280 for them to dispose of it. Now, we also have to rent a pumps and hoses to pump these tanks down. I have a call into our new DNR engineer to find out if there's another alternative to save us a little bit of money. And she's checking on the legality of that, which hopefully we can find something that would save us a little bit of money. I also checked into landfilling it on our own, and that would be $75 per ton, plus the cost of adding lime to it. We would have to add 10% lime to dispose of this at a landfill. So again, these are ballpark figures. We really don't know how much actual sediment is at the bottom of these tanks, but it would come to anywhere between $36,180 to $47,080. Again, very ballpark figures. And I can divert to Kyle a little bit on where the money might come from.
So, looking at the current budget doesn't have the money to accommodate this. As we looked at the year, we've had several unanticipated repairs. We just got done replacing the filter media for about $20,000, and that was following the influent pump repair. That was about $10,000. So there's been a variety of different things that have kind of popped up, I guess, related to the plant. And, you can handle a few of these each year, but it's getting to the point where likely later in the year, once you know these costs certain, you'll probably have to do a budget amendment and pull from fund balance, which is not the end of the world. You would not likely plan for all of these things to happen every year because they haven't happened every year. It's sort of just the way it's happening this year. Some of it is, I think, Katie continues to do the work and find things that aren't working properly and then fix them. So we know that the bidding for the lift stations was also over what we anticipated, so you have that one that'll have to be addressed as we move into paying those bills. So the money, I think, is going to come from fund balance one way or the other. And as you get into that later this year, again, once you know the numbers that you actually need to accommodate, you'll be able to sort of look at where the best area is to pull those from, because there are some reserve funds for pumps and things like that you can make sure that they qualify under the DNR regulations, that it's the right kind of pump in the right location that you've been reserving for. But there are funds available that you have reserves for those funds. So not in the budget now, but you'll basically overspend your budget now with the intent of squaring it up at later in the year before the end of the budget year is over.
Okay. Katie, can you tell me, is this something that should be or is on a regular maintenance cycle so that it doesn't come to an emergency point?
It's been removed in the past. I've talked to Dave a little bit about the consistency of this. It's very fine sediment, and I think it's really of the natural flock nature of the wastewater. So it doesn't seem like it's out of the ordinary. It seems to come up, and in the past they've even had like more of this. So I don't know if this is a natural thing that's just occurring, or
yeah, I agree with what Katie said. This has happened in the past, and the city installed a new grit collection system in 2011, and after that, that greatly helped. We had situations where this grit, which this is really not grit, it's a very light flock. In the past, we used to have grit, and they used to actually cover the diffusers, and it used to be much more significant. So the grit system that the city installed in 2011 has helped, but unfortunately, there is still this very light flack that, that accumulates. And the city also upgraded your diffusers in 2014. That helped keep things in suspension. So I guess what I'm saying is between the diffuser upgrade and the grit upgrade, this whole issue kind of was minimized, but we are switching out the diffusers as part of this project. That's how this all started, to get to a different type of diffuser. And we were hoping, Katie said 4 or 6 inches. We were hoping for maybe 2 or 3 inches. And we were hoping that it could be a situation that the city's staff could handle by themselves, and it's just a little bit more than we anticipated.
So I'm sorry, maybe I didn't say what I was asking very well. So is this something that we need to be routinely doing every year so that there isn't this kind of accumulation all at once?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't know that this is much of an accumulation, to be honest. So we have to remove it in order to get these diffusers in.
Yeah.
But remember, it's this much in a 17-foot tank. So it's really not a significant amount, but it is enough so that they can't install the diffusers until we get it out of the tank.
Okay.
So I don't think typically, honestly, I would think that hopefully in my lifetime here left until I retire, that we wouldn't even have to address this again. But, it's kind of hard to tell, would this occur again? It could. You sure it could, but it's very fine, light sediment that I think is naturally occurring, and I don't know that we need to, normally, I don't think that we would have needed to address it. It's not taking up space in the aeration tanks that we would notice.
Okay.
It's really, like I said, it's about 4 to 6 inches. So, it wasn't even covering the diffusers, so it wasn't creating a problem with our diffusers. But it does create a problem with trying to install a new diffuser.
Sure, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Even after these are installed, the diffuser membranes don't last forever. They have to be replaced after 8 or 9 years. So 8 or 9 years from now, we will be going through this again.
Okay.
But it's not worth cleaning out the tanks every year.
Okay.
But perhaps anticipating an 8-year cycle for this large, estimated around, with inflation, $50,000, we can
Start
better
saving.
set aside. Cool. What the diffusers, if you mind, or if you don't mind, excuse me, the diffusers we did in 2014, different diffusers than what we're doing today?
Well,
They are.
Okay.
They're similar, but those diffusers that we installed in 2014 are being phased out by the manufacturer.
Okay. So we have to
They're
replace them
putting in
early.
A different style diffuser that, the next time we have to replace them, we won't go through this. It'll be replacing the membranes 1 for 1.
Okay, so they're basically obsolete now, so we need to replace them
Yes.
unanticipated because of that.
Right.
Okay.
right, and we got this it's through kind of the warranty, correct? So we're paying for, we didn't actually pay for the diffusers themselves because of this, is that we're paying for the labor. So, so it's a good deal for us as far as that goes to get these new diffusers. So to set this aside because of the sludge issue in the bottom really doesn't make sense because to replace these is significant.
That's really good point, thank you, and good info too. I think now we can kind of have an idea of what this cycle is, so,
Yep. Thank you.
perfect,
Katie.
thank you, guys.
Do we have other questions?
I do have one. Assuming that if we contract this out, it's going to be time and materials, there's not going to be a set price, it's going to be by per ton. That's my understanding?
It's per ton. Yeah, like I said, so the removal of it is per day. So it's $7,300 per day. It takes roughly a day to a day and a half to remove it from one tank. We're hoping for a day. And then the actual disposal of the sludge is the $68 per ton. So,
I guess I don't know exactly what this process looks like because you have to rent a pump and a hose. I don't know if the sludge comes directly out of the tank and then right into a
Well, we
truck.
have-
But if we're paying for the removal of water, is there anywhere in the process where you could remove it and dry it and then dispose of it? Because the wet sand is gonna be
Right.
twice as heavy as the dry.
We're hoping that they can decant their trucks when they, because they'll have to, it'll be, like a vac truck.
Okay.
Our vac truck, we do have a vac truck, but it is old.
Yeah, I know that.
And it doesn't reach where it could,
Oh.
some of these newer trucks can reach much further into the tank and that it would take, ours doesn't reach and doesn't have the suction capability that we would need to do this job.
Okay.
But they should be able to decant so that it isn't water that we're paying for.
Sure.
So that's, that, like I said, that's one of the things that we're trying to avoid. Also, like I said, I already talked to our DNR engineer, and we're looking at an alternative, hopefully for us to dispose of it ourselves. But I have to get the DNR approval to do that. So she's looking into that for us. So hopefully we'll be able to avoid the disposal cost. But because I don't know what that answer is yet.
Sure.
I can't. We have to go assume that it's a bigger amount.
Sure. Thank you, Katie.
Question.
Yeah.
Katie, would the contractor be using our sludge sites, or will they have their own sludge sites, or
They,
how's?
they will have their own. They will dispose of it on their own. We don't, all of our sludge sites are planted by now. So they'll have to dispose of it on their own. And they probably will landfill it themselves.
So, once they've assumed responsibility for it, then we don't have any
Then
liability?
it's not
on that?
ours anymore. Correct. Once it leaves our property, it's their responsibility.
Laura, did you?
Okay, so yeah, when do we think we'll hear back from the DNR?
She said she'd call me tomorrow,
Okay.
so I'm hoping that she does. But
Yeah.
she's still got to check with other engineers to confirm on my questions on how to dispose of this, if we
Okay.
can dispose. She understood the economic factor of it and was hoping that we could figure out a better way to dispose of this than.
Do you think it's worthwhile to wait for their response?
Well, we'll go with that response if,
Oh.
yeah, so I agree, yes, but,
Okay.
I'm just trying to come up with a solution ahead of time, just in case, because I don't see you for another month.
So it might make sense for us to give her a range in our motion that she could go up to. Okay.
Just out of curiosity, now to landfill it ourselves, you have $15.75.
So to landfill it ourselves, it's $75 a ton,
Yeah.
right? And
That's just to get rid of it, or is that everything?
that's just to get rid of it, but I did not include the fuel cost, because we'd have to landfill it. I think the landfill's in Mayville. Also, he told me I would have to add 10% lime to landfill it. So I didn't add in that cost, but lime is fairly, I think it's like, about $200 for a dump truck full of lime.
Plus personnel cost.
Correct. And it's, yeah, so it would be all the loads
Right.
to Mayville, how many ever loads that would be. So that's fuel prices too. I did not include that in with that either.
Would that be a significant burden on your team to?
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, we could do it. That wouldn't be the end of the world. It's just a little bit more money where, Bytech would take it off premise immediately.
Okay.
We wouldn't be storing it, because if we did it ourselves, we'd store it for till it would dry a little bit more to reduce the cost. They would probably be bringing it off-site a little wetter.
Okay.
But their cost was less than if we do it ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Surprisingly.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, because the 15,750 could be quite a bit, or
More.
significantly more.
Mhm.
Yeah, that 14,280 is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
in my.
So do we have a motion? We're looking for, the action that's requested is to waive the requirement of 3 quotes and to approve the repair or the number 5 filter backwash pump. That's what it says on the thing here.
I might have given you the wrong sheets.
Oh,
Sorry. I just think you just didn't update that line.
Uh-huh.
okay. So all you're looking for then is just a motion to approve the amount that you have here, total cost between $37,680 and $48,580. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'll make that first motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Reagan. Can we have a roll call on this, please?
Yep. Andler,
Aye.
Beckman,
Aye.
Rule,
Aye.
Curtis,
Aye.
Moda,
Aye.
Hammer,
Aye.
Tone.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, everyone. Next, we are going to have a discussion on an alternate WPPI director recommendation. Michelle, would you like to give an overview on that?
Sure. So each community that is a member owner of WPPI has a board of director and an alternate board of director. Joe has held this position before when he worked for the utilities. It's usually, you know, the managers or director or that type of thing. There are a few mayors. We were leaving, so currently I am the WPPI board of director, and the alternate has been vacant since Dave Kidney left. And we were kind of keeping it vacant, you know, in the hopes of getting a director in place and then re-looking at it. But since it's been a significant amount of time, I think that in talking with Anna from WPPI, the commission should appoint somebody so that is not vacant until a director is in place until that can be brought up again.
That was my question. I think Joe is an excellent choice, but this is just until we get the municipal services director hired. Okay. Does anybody else have questions? Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to have Joe as the alternate director to the WPPI.
I will second.
Do we need to clarify that it's an interim position?
You can change this at any time.
Okay, all right. All those in favor, aye.
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 Anyone opposed, same sign. Motion passes. We are going to adjourn to closed session under WISSTAT 19851C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss employer resignation, employee title, duties and compensation adjustments for specific utility employees. Do I have a motion to go into closed session? No, we did number 4. No, we didn't do number 4. I'm sorry. Okay. So, at the last council meeting, we discussed a possible recruitment services for another position within the city. It was recommended that perhaps we can use the same service for the municipal services director. And Kyle, do you want to go through the differences in the?
So these aren't public yet. So the rates aren't known publicly yet in case the city's going to negotiate with one or more to, try to get a different rate or a different setup between them. So the rates for the primary portion for the city administrator are not publicly known yet, so that each firm would know what the other had bid, because we may try to get a different deal. But some of them did put together information about what they would offer for the utility recruitment, and those services are there, and it is relatively straightforward. Some put information out there what their costs would be, and then others kind of were silent on that.
Do we have any thoughts or questions on using a recruitment service for the municipal services director?
I think that considering the amount of time that we've been vacant and without successful recruitment on our own, I think we have to try something new.
I agree. Joe?
Do we have, it's been posted already, correct, that position?
Yeah.
Are there any applications up to this point?
I did not check today. I believe there has been some interest, but I don't know necessarily that there's been strong interest.
Okay.
Any other questions or thoughts?
No, I would agree with the time that we've spent and let somebody else take control of that and spend their time, provided it's cost effective.
And we would
get results.
The utility would obviously pay for our portion of the search. And there's quite a range here. So are we able to make a motion without saying that range?
For the utility portion of it, I think that there's some of them that gave you a rate if you go along with our administrative recruitment, and then there's a standalone rate.
Right.
So if there's a preferred provider that you really think is going to do the best, you could make a motion to identify just one that you wanted to work with, or you could kind of agree to go along with whoever the city chooses. I think that the two of you are also going to be involved in the decision tomorrow evening. So it's kind of one of those, the meeting normally would have been after the city made its
Right.
decision, which would have made it a lot easier on Thursday. And just kind of timing wise, it got bumped up ahead of time, so it makes it a little bit cart before the horse.
Difficult, yeah. The last one on the paper that you have here is quite a bit less. Is it less services?
So the primary difference is, as you look, trying to go from memory, from the far right, it's a single person shop, essentially. That doesn't mean it's not professional, but certainly, their work is much more individualized. And when you go further to the left, you get more of a Wisconsin regional company. And then second to the left, you get a company that's sort of throughout the entire Midwest and conducts nationwide searches. And then you have a company that has helped us in the past with some different studies, and they're, in the field, but they're not necessarily, a huge player yet. So, they have some experience, but it's probably more limited than the two on the left. As far as municipality-wise, the one on the left is probably the most greatly used in Wisconsin. Second highest used would probably be the second to the left, and then the third, and then finally the one on the right is probably the most individualized and probably the least frequently used across the state. But again, that's more on the administration side.
Right. I know I'm familiar with the first and third ones here on the list, and I'm very comfortable with the first one. I don't know if the commission would be, are you supportive of that kind of money, I guess is what I'm asking. Mike, you have your light on?
Yeah, I think Kyle kind of said everything that I was thinking as well. The process right now is that it's kind of the cart before the horse because we don't know what the council's going to do.
Right.
So we don't have a whole lot of information about each one of these right now and what depth
Right.
of service or how widespread their reach is to find a candidate. I'm in favor of definitely moving forward with the recruitment service, but is there a way that we can procedurally kind of agree to say we want to do that and then find out what the council decides upon and then make a decision next month whether we piggyback and have more refined pricing, or what can we commit to tonight really, I guess?
Well, it's going to have to go to Cal and then to
Okay.
council, so we have 2 meetings, right?
We're having a special committee of the whole to start the evening.
Okay.
So we'll be able to act on it during the regular.
Okay.
So I think you could, if you're not certain tonight, I think we could definitely, hold off. I think getting them engaged, there's going to be a ramp up, as you're familiar. They're going to be busy getting the administrator recruitment going. If in the next couple of weeks they, we figure out which way the commission wants to go, they could then start that process after a few weeks and start that, once the commission kind of takes a position on which way they want to go. So I mean, you'd lose a couple weeks in there, but I don't know that it would be a great inconvenience necessarily.
We've waited for a while anyway, so if it's a 2-week lag, it is 2 separate positions, and that kind of breaks the 2 apart, I guess. But maybe we would have better pricing by going with one firm for both. But again, I'd like to have more information on the scope of services that we would be looking at, whichever vendor the city council looks at, we might want to go a different direction. I'm not sure. I'm familiar with a couple of these firms, but I don't know in what capacity or what depth they have working for, looking for a utility
Right.
focused person, so.
Right.
But I'm in favor of moving forward with the recruitment service in general.
Great. Sandy?
I'm also would like to know more about the services that each of these would provide, so I think that's appropriate. I'm a little confused, though, on the recruitment of the Director of Services. They're recruiting for both this, on the behalf of the commission and on the behalf of the city, right? Because we're blending those positions
No.
into one?
They'll be recruiting for the city administrator position because Mr. Ellefson is leaving us.
No, I understand.
Even though he doesn't want to. So that one will be the city, and then the municipal services director will be paid for by the utility and in part the DPW.
Yeah, it would be shared according to the policy where we split costs, if that was the question. So the municipal services director would be split according to the share between utilities and public works.
Okay, and which entity would decide which way we go about the recruitment? Would the city decide, or does the commission decide?
We can decide. So our choice is, once we have more information, we can either go with the direction of the city or choose our own separate contract.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, and so what I'm hearing is that we all approve with considering the recruitment service, and we're not going to make any decision on who this evening, so it'll be tabled.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question. So it's posted right now, and we've had applicants?
I believe I heard there was at least one applicant. Again, I don't know more than that. I don't know highly qualified, less qualified, anything, but I also don't believe there's been a lot of applications.
Okay. And will that stay open on a direct basis until such time we decide?
It is staying open right now until we make a decision on a recruitment firm.
Okay.
So, until the commission decides to go forward with a recruitment firm, there's really no benefit to pulling it down, I think. Because
right.
maybe you will get a
Right.
influx of candidates suddenly
Right.
and
Right.
feel the need to vet those candidates
Right.
before you sign on the dotted line for a
Yeah.
contract.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think we would do that in case there's a qualified applicant that comes in. We'll look at that before
Yep.
signing any agreement.
So, do we need a motion to table it? Okay, can I get a motion to table this?
I move to table the recruitment services.
Thank you, Sandy. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. All those in favor, aye.
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 Anyone opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now, we're going to move on to closed session. We're going to adjourn to closed session under WISTAT 19851C to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss employee resignation, employee title, duties and compensation adjustments for specific utility employees. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move to go into closed session.
Thank you, Reagan. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. And this has to be rolled.
Hammer,
Aye.
Moda,
Aye.
Beckman,
Aye.
Tone,
Aye.
Ambler, Rule,
Aye.
Curtis,
Aye.
motion carries.
All right, we are now in closed session, and we will not be returning back to air. Thank you.